So welcome and good evening to the Community Center here in Pacifica. My name is Eric Consley. I'm with Kearns & West. We're a stakeholder engagement public development firm that's going to be helping out tonight and with the planning process that will be described later on. And so we'll be helping to run the meeting and facilitate things. I'd like to start by asking Chris Potter, who's one of the co-chairs of the Coastal Sediment Management Work Group, to come up and make some initial introductions.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm Chris Potter with the California Natural Resources Agency. We're the co-chair along with the Army Corps of Engineers Coastal Sediment Management Work Group. It's a work group that's dedicated to implementing coastal sediment, regional sediment management in California. I'd also like to introduce.
Can't hear you.
Sorry. Okay. I'd like to introduce other members of the work group if they would stand up. John Dingler. Yeah, John Dingler with the Corps. And Cliff Davenport with the. Go ahead. Sorry.
Cliff Davenport, California Geological Survey, and the stateside project manager for the CSSA.
Tom Kendall, Corps of Engineers, and John will introduce himself later, I guess.
Brenda Gaten, BCDC. Brenda Gaten, BCDC. Kristen Ward, National Park Service, GGNRA.
Yes,
George Domernat, retired irritant to the Corps of Engineers. So I myself and Brian Barrett started this motley crew over 15 years ago. You know, and the critical thing that we always believed when we started this is that, you know, you just can't study for the next 20 years, you got to implement something. So I'm really proud of this group. We're all great. I retired out of the Corps in July, and so now all of a sudden they're doing like 4 times more work. I can't understand that. But again, congratulations. It's good to see, you know, what we had a lot of dreams about, you know, with sediment management. That's something that's coming to fruition. So.
Well, anyway, I wanted to, thanks folks for showing up on a Wednesday. It's been a long week, Wednesday evening, and we're going to run through.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So if folks haven't signed in yet, please make sure you do so. We'll be adding people to the mailing list. It's very helpful for us. I just want to note that we do have some elected officials and representatives of elected officials in the room here tonight that I'd like to just acknowledge. We have Mayor Pro Tem from the City of Pacifica, Sue DeVries. Welcome, Sue. Thank you for coming. We also have Council Member John Keener from the City of Pacifica as well. From the County Cemetery, we have Chris Hunter, who's here on behalf of County Supervisor Don Horsley. And we've been informed that we might have County Supervisor Dave Pine as well. I don't know if he has made it yet. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your participation tonight and for acknowledging the importance of this important planning process. So the last introductions we want to do is the Kearns & West team. Again, I'm here at Consley, one of the supervisors. Over on the side is Ben Gettleman, another facilitator as well. And then you're all meeting Julie Gold, who's at the welcome table. And we have several roles here tonight. One is that we help to prepare for the meeting. We'll be helping to essentially, do our best to make sure that we're achieving the meeting objectives. We'll be helping to manage discussions, the presentations, and facilitating the comment period that will take place. And then finally, we'll be preparing a summary of the discussion tonight so that we can capture that and have it inform this planning process moving forward. Lastly, I want to acknowledge that we have Pacifica Community TV here tonight as well. They were invited by one of the city council members, and so they are capturing the meeting. And it had also been a request by folks, I think one of the Half Bay Harbor Commissioners. They have a meeting tonight as well, and we were sad to conflict with the meetings, but they had made the request that if we were able to videotape them, they would be able to watch it afterwards. So we're happy to do that. If you know people who wanted to make it tonight and couldn't make it, the video will be available online pretty soon. Okay, with that, so we can move on to the objectives, please. Chris, please. Okay, great. So I want to acknowledge that. So this is the planning process for the San Francisco Littoral Cell Coastal Regional Sediment Management Plan. And what we're doing tonight is sort of a reboot of sorts for the planning process. So there had been a process that was taking place back in 2012, and John will describe that in greater detail later on in his presentation. But the planning process has come back online again, and tonight is really intended to be a kickstart, a kickoff to get it going again. So it very much is, our objectives are to provide an overview for those who haven't been tracking the Coastal Sediment Management Work Group and the plan itself. It's a reorientation to what the work group is and what the plan is. We want to give folks an update on what the planning process has been to date. Discuss next steps, because the draft plan is intended to come out for public review in the near future. We're anticipating the very beginning of January. And then we also want to take some time in the comment period to hear from you. What are some of the important processes, planning or otherwise, that have been taking place in the area of the San Francisco Littoral Cell over the past couple of years that are important for this planning process. So we'd like to hear from you on that. And also, if you have any questions about it, we also want to address those as we go. And again, we are planning on having additional public meetings in the January timeframe in conjunction with the review of the draft plan, and we'll get into that into more details later. So this is the sort of the step one of a multi-step process. Okay, next slide. So here's the agenda for tonight. We're here until 8 o'clock. The 6:10 item and the 6:30 item are really two presentation items, and that will be presented by members from the Coastal Sediment Management Work Group. The first one is the overview of the CSMW and of the San Francisco Littoral Cell plan. And then we'll pause and take some clarifying questions. If there's something you didn't understand in the PowerPoint presentation, we'll pause and clarify that. And then we have another presentation at that point, which really goes into a discussion of the process for developing the plan to date and how we move forward from here. At that point, we're gonna essentially move into we've carved out a lot of time in this meeting to have discussions around that. We want to again hear from you in terms of questions you might have, comments you might have on the process to date, and certainly if there's information to share that would be informative in the planning process, we invite those too. And then we'll wrap up with closing remarks around 7:50. One thing that we would like to do at the very end of the meeting, if folks want to hang out, the Coastal Sediment members have agreed to stay out, and we do have a couple of maps from the draft plan that we'll pull out. If you want to come over here, we'll put the maps up and you can ask them questions. It'll be a little bit of a sneak preview to what will be in the plan. So next slide, please. This is the last one before we kick off. So just want to propose some ground rules for everyone here tonight. And we're facilitators. We like our process steps like this. And so these are rules of interaction that we invite us all to uphold together. The first is to ask that everyone focuses on our discussion and your input on the meeting objectives tonight and on this particular planning process. And we ask everyone to honor our time in the agenda and honor the ability for everyone else to speak tonight. And of course, we want to be engaging in a very respectful way with each other. If you haven't turned your cell phone off or silent, please do so now. And the last thing is that since we are being videotaped tonight, and as well, just to make sure everyone can hear you, we do have some cordless mics. And so if you do have a comment or have a question to ask, there is a mic etiquette, as I like to call it. So you have to keep the mic pretty close to your mouth. And if you put the mic here, it doesn't work really as well. It won't be picked up by the video itself. So please hold the mic close. And a couple other things. When we get to the comment period, because we're not a huge group, we're thinking that we could do this pretty informally. And by that, if you have a question, I'll basically pause and say, who would like to speak or ask a question. You'll raise your hand, I'll write some names down, and then we'll go through that batch of people in the queue, and then after we hit everybody, we'll go back, and so they have multiple opportunities to ask questions as we go. And I think we'll have enough time to address them all. So that's how we'll do things, and just ask people to be respectful of others' opportunities to ask questions and comment as well. Finally, the bathrooms are just around the corner here, through the wall. And these ground rules look okay, everybody? All right, so with that, we're going to jump to our first agenda item, which is an overview of the CSMW and of the San Francisco Legal Cell Coastal Region Sediment Management Plan. And here I'm going to turn it over to John Pitt. We'll just pause and
Welcome, and for the Corps of Engineers, I thank you for joining us tonight. Okay. If I can't hear myself behind myself, I don't have it up close enough. I'm John Dingler. Little background, I waited. I'm a retired U.S. Geological Survey coastal scientist, lived and worked in Menlo Park, and actually had some projects along this stretch of coast, including looking at, in the late 90s, at cliff failure in the Manor and Surfers Beach and southern Half Moon Bay. I then retired and have come back. I'm a member of the Corps of Engineers. We employed a annuitants cadre, and which is a group of retired federal employees who have come aboard to support Corps projects throughout the country. Based in headquarters, the headquarters is in Washington, D.C. I live in Portland, Oregon. I could work anywhere in the Corps, and right now I'm assigned to San Francisco. My three goals are to explain a little bit about who CSMW is, then to talk about coastal regional sediment management plans in general, and then to step into the San Francisco Liberal Cell Plan. And because all those acronyms and letters, I'm just going to call this plan. So that's what I'm referring to when I say the plan is this plan. Okay, next. Okay, CSMW, it's a collaborative task force of state, federal, regional, local interests. We have, it's based in California, it's for the state of California, so the state members are agencies within California interested and have involvement in the coastal arena. The main federal group is the Corps of Engineers, but other federal agencies participate, USGS being a prime example, GGNRA, the Park Service, and others. You can see the little icons down there. The co-chairs are, as Chris said, the Corps of Engineers and the California Natural Resources Agency. If you want to learn a lot about us, and I highly encourage you to do so, type in CSMW in your favorite browser. You'll find this page right on top and just wander through it. There's a lot of information there. CSMW has been in existence for several years. We've been actively working on developing products related to the California coastline, including WebMapper, access that allow you to go and do GIS, work with GIS later, create maps, etc. So go to this website. It's really cool. Why? We know there are a lot of problems along the California coast. And back before CSMW, it was piecemeal. And one community or one group would want to do something, and there wouldn't be a bigger picture. And CSMW is an effort to do more, to look at it larger than one community at a time scale. Upper left, that's before, during, and after the El Nino of '82 in Monterey Bay. the one on the top right is Port Hueneme area, and you can see Magoo Canyon, and there's sediment on the north side of the entrance to those harbors and nothing to the south. Wetlands are important. It's not all about sand beaches, but coastal wetlands are also something that we're concerned about. And then, of course, much of the state, more in the south and even up here, is recreation. Beaches are critical to the economy of much of the state. So where are we looking? Where is CS&W involved? And it's the whole state. This map shows where we have the plans, either completed plans or ongoing plans, and I'll get back to that. But you can see there's several. The blue ones were completed, totally completed. The green ones are ongoing or just completed. The red one is San Luis Obispo. It's the latest. It's just started. You can't, and then the blue one inside San Francisco Bay is a separate plan, and it's a critical part of the coastal environment also. Where there's yellow means that we don't have plans right now, and those are usually uninhabited or lightly inhabited coastal, rocky coastal areas. Now, the overarching document that we, CS&W, is going to produce at the end of our first phase, our study phase, our plan development phase, is called the Sediment Master Plan. And this is a document that in draft form is already on the webpage, available through the website. And it's going to look at the coastal zone along all of California and try to put these things in a regional perspective. And we're hoping that that will then lead to our ability to implement or help you all implement projects in the future. And the dates, they're tied to the congressional authorization. In 1999, Congress authorized the Corps the South Pacific Division to sign an agreement with the state of California, and that's when CS&W started. At the end of FY15, that authorization ended, and now we are using carryover funds in the Corps to wrap up this phase of our project. Okay, so our mission, and I really hit on this, is to conserve, restore, and protect the California coastal resources. And on a regional basis, we're trying to, as I said before, go beyond just one community, one area at a time. Okay, a little digression into the littoral cell, a coastal concept that's important to the development of these coastal plans. Littoral cells are a concept that looks at breaks the coast down into areas where sand enters, moves along the shoreline, and then is lost to some deep water. It's trapped between two headlands, and so the sand that enters into that cell is at some point lost from the cell, either into deep water or down a canyon. You have sources that come from rivers, erosion of bluffs, erosion of dunes, sand moving onshore, maybe relic sand from lower sea level that's out there, and then waves will push it ashore. And then on the other hand, you have these sinks, so losses of sand that include armoring of bluffs, losses, wind blowing into dunes, etc., going down the canyon, sand mining. And so you have this balance of accretion if you get more sand coming in, erosion if you have less than is lost to the system, and you'd like to have an equilibrium, which is pretty difficult. that's the basic premise for the regional approach of using the littoral cell as defining a region. Next. So this is a cartoon that you'll see in the Sediment Master Plan draft if you go when you go to the webpage, the website. And this is how we envision the situation now, starting at the hinterland in the watershed and coming down to the coast. So sand is more and more being trapped behind dams. And then this is an example from a study that looked at how much sand is contained in dams. And you can see within the 3 southern central California regions, the distribution of material, even though it looks like there is a lot less in Central California, there's still a lot of material being confined behind dams. And I should point out that the rectangles with names along the coast are the identified littoral cells within California. Another loss of sand is through mining. The picture is actually a mine down, beach mining down in southern Monterey Bay. They're not taking the sand from the beach face, that would be illegal, but they're taking it from right behind the beach in the dune area and back berm. But there are other mining going on in the rivers and in San Francisco Bay that potentially are removing sand that otherwise would have reached the coast. Just urbanization, covering over, paving, building, and channelizing rivers reduces the amount of sand that can reach the coast. And then you have bluff protection. Bluffs erode, and they contribute sand, but sometimes you have to stop erosion. You have to protect the bluffs. When you do so, a consequence is a loss of sand to the coast, to the beach. So we're developing in the master plan sets of recommendations, and this is just hitting a few of them. So can we bypass sand? Sand from behind dams, can we get it down to the coast, either by slurry into the riverbed, below the dam, notching dams, tearing down dams, trucking it. Now all of these are things that you can imagine aren't going to happen tomorrow. They can be expensive and there's a lot of controversy to them. So certainly you don't want dump trucks running down your highway for 10 years, 24 hours a day to get a lot of sand. But these are things that need to be considered if we want to have and restore the health of the beaches. Mining, move the mining out of the river, move the mining off of the beach or the back beach. Encourage the miners to find places away from the rivers and the ocean. Some sort of compensation in urban areas to pay for finding sand sources elsewhere. Ideas, maybe that's applicable in some parts of the state and not others. And then just working in the coastal zone to maximize the movement of sand and the usefulness of sand on the beaches in the littoral zone. So now the plans, the coastal RSM plans, we're trying to encourage the regions to develop these plans that will afford guidance in terms of thinking down the road 50 years, 10, 50 years to be prepared to respond to coastal erosion hazard issues that come about. We're trying to preload so that inform you, the plans will inform you, and then suggest ways that you might respond. And as you can imagine, you live along the coast, you know there's all sorts of issues going on with home loss of infrastructure, safety. If you have a stretch of coast with rock revetments, at some point with sea level rise and beach erosion, you're not going to be able to walk on that beach, or if you try to, it's going to be dangerous. And this is another example, just expanding on this and talking about some of the other agencies that would become more available, more encouraging if there are regional plans in place. The funding and economics might be a little more, should be more efficient, doing it in a large area rather than a smaller area. And certainly the Coastal Commission, the Coastal Conservancy are encouraging the communities when they update their LCPs, for example, to put emphasis on regional sediment management. And this cartoon won't dwell on this very long. We can certainly make it available. The top is 3 time slices on what will happen with sea level rise or the loss of beach. Your sea is going to retreat farther inland, and more structures are going to be threatened, and at some point you're going to have large-scale flooding. This is all something that you're aware of because you live along the beach. The bottom 2 diagrams show what could happen if in front of an armored stretch of float, of bluff. At some time, early time on the left, you have a wide summer beach, nice berm, and in the winter, the beach is eroded. You create your bars offshore, but you still have a small amount of beach. On the right, as sea level rises, or you just lose beach because there's no supply coming along shore, and the bluffs are no longer able to feed the beach with sand. You're going to have a narrower beach in the summer, and in the winter you may have no beach at all. And this is not a situation that's healthy, and it's not safe. Is this where you want to stop? Okay.
Great. So I want to pause here for any questions that folks might have. If you can go back one slide. Because we wanted to spend some time saying, what does the CSFW do, and what is in a coastal regional sediment management plan? What's their purpose? We really wanted to highlight the importance both for local jurisdictions and in general. So are there any questions on what John has presented so far? Over here. Ben has a mic for you. Yeah, so if you could just please give your name and affiliation and then ask the question.
Richard Harris is my name. My affiliation is with the Public Golf Alliance, San Francisco Public Golf Alliance. Question, you mentioned the Coastal Commission a couple of points. What relationship is there between this process and the Coastal Commission, and do you share definitions? At one point you said that one of the points of the effort here is to protect coastal resources. Do you share definitions with the California Coastal Commission of what is and what is not a coastal resource?
Thank you. Let's see. So the Coastal Commission at a staff level participates in the Coastal Sediment Management Work Group. Their coastal engineer and the coastal geologist are active participants in this CSFW. In terms of your second, the second part of your question was, do we use the same vernacular? And to some degree we do, but the Coastal Act is unto itself, and the Coastal Commission is a regulatory body. And what we are proposing here is not prescriptive. It's totally thank you, guidance.
And I could add that, I should have said this earlier, the CSFW comprises a lot of agencies, and those agencies participate willingly and contribute, but they are not bound by any decision. Just because there's something that's developed, a given agency doesn't have to commit to it. In other words, the Coastal Commission isn't bound by CSFW recommendations. They still have to follow their own rules and regulations, the law. They can't, but they can participate, and we need them all to participate. We need the input. How are we going to have a regional, statewide effort with all this cooperation?
Thanks for the question. Going over there.
I don't have a question, I just maybe want to try to clarify a little bit, if I could.
Give your name and affiliation.
Brenda Gage, BCDC. Being Assistant Agency of the Coastal Commission, I just want to offer that the regional sediment management plans are primarily developed at a regional level, local governments, local communities contributing their ideas and thoughts, working with consultants who have expertise in the area to develop the plans. We don't believe the Coastal Commission has yet seen this plan because it's in draft form. It's going to come out in January. So the idea here is it's kind of a regional effort to help inform what you all would like to see in your community with some expertise advice. And then the Coastal Commission is something that you could follow, and you would, if you choose to enact parts of it or all of it, you would need to work with the Coastal Commission to do that. I just wanted to offer that perspective.
No, that's correct.
Thank you. Any other clarifying questions? John?
Is this something that's going to be voted on?
Can you hold on to get you the mic?
Is this something that's going to be voted on, or is there going to be something where the people have something to say?
Well, the point of these plans is to get them to a certain point with initial public input and city staff input, release the plan for comment, and then improve the plan, and then release a final draft. And we hope that the regional entities, communities, counties, agencies, as best they can agree to and work with. This is a guidance document. Its purpose is to tell you what the situation is like now, what will happen in, say, 50 years if nothing's done, if we just have the status quo, and what kinds of reasonable coastal engineering approaches we think are available for different parts of the plan area. So we're putting out information. We're trying to inform. We're trying to tell you what you can, what things are available, and then it's you and the communities that have to decide what you want to do. But we're trying to make it, you know what the situation is. Someone in back.
Michael Barber with Supervisor Dave Lyons' office. So I understand this is guidance. Could you give, it sounds like in Southern California you completed some of these plans. Can you give some examples of what they did once the plan was complete? So it's kind of a follow-on question of what we asked about communities.
Yeah, we got our project. It's a team effort. You can see we all work together.
So again, Cliff Davenport, stateside project manager. I think probably a good example of follow-up would be the Beacon project, Beach Erosion Authority for Clean Oceans and Nourishment. It's a joint powers authority for Ventura and Santa Barbara County. They completed their plan and it identified a number of possibilities. So they then followed that up with what they call a strategic initiative plan. I think I might have that acronym a little bit wrong, but the idea was that they came up with a series of projects that they felt was important to their community to go for, and then put some priorities on it. Everything from, we want to get more sand on this beach. We want to work with the coastal watersheds groups to bring them into to what we're doing. Just a wide variety of different types of projects, and then they're working through trying to pick those off. David Cannon, who is actually, he's a consultant who is working for us on some other projects, has pointed out that in addition to that, there's the San Diego Coastal Regional Sediment Management Plan. The plan that they developed was prior to this large regional beach fill program that they conducted just a few years ago. And they used the information that was contained in the plan to help them prioritize the beaches that they wanted to nourish and went forward from there.
Thank you for the question. So another question up front here.
Yeah, I'm going to direct it back to Cliff real quick. So tying this back in a little bit with the discussion earlier. Sorry? Oh, I'm Tom Kendall with the Corps of Engineers, and I'm part of the Coastal Sediment Management Work Group. And so, getting back to the gentleman's question about Coastal Commission, and I think Brenda, who works with the sister agency, Bay Conservation Development Commission, they basically do the same administrating the Coastal Zone Management Act for the Bay. So she's a good spokesperson on kind of how agencies with those capacities are engaged on this. But so we've got examples in Southern California where people actually raise money to do beach nourishment. I guess the other direction we could go with this, and I'll ask Cliff, has anybody actually used one of these regional sediment management plans, to your knowledge, to affect their local coastal plan?
I cannot answer that. I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
but that's a scenario. Somebody could potentially do that. I don't know if anybody has yet.
Chris, do you have?
Well, I was going to. Okay. I guess there's one preliminary example along those lines, and that is the draft plan for Eureka. It's been a launching pad for sea level rise adaptation work in Humboldt Bay, and there's more planned.
Thank you for those questions. Any final questions? We're actually move into a little bit more detail about the San Francisco Littoral Cell plan that might also answer some questions. And before we do so, I just want to hit one point that is really important. One of our goals for tonight is to again reiterate that the plan really is guidance, and that decision making for how to implement anything in this plan is done by local jurisdictions. And so it's information for local decision making, either be made at the city level, at the county levels, or other jurisdictions. Thanks for the questions. I'm going to turn it back to you now, John. You can advance a couple slides.
Okay, the San Francisco Littoral Cell Plan. It covers the stretch of coast from the Golden Gate to Point San Pedro. It's about 17 miles, and it also goes inland to cover the watersheds along the coast. Go back. The two agents, both the state and the Corps funded parts of this plan. The state has funded the outreach, government, development side of the plan, and the Corps has funded the development of the plan, and we contracted with ESA to create this plan. They've done that. They led some of the meetings in 2012. They took your ideas, they worked them, and with other information that was available at the time, they created draft plans of which CS&W has reviewed 3 iterations, and we've accepted the last one. We have taken it, and now CS&W is going to carry forward any output, comments from meetings like this, and finalize the plan. There's one more.
The 3 regions.
Oh, no, there was something else. But anyway, I'll come back to that. Okay, so when they developed the plan, they broke it into several stretches of coast that we will call reaches. And these were broken down into, because of their similarity. Like up in the far north part of the area, you have some rocky headlands with small pocket beaches. And that was one set of beaches. And then you get to Ocean Beach, and farther down you have this long stretch of sandy beach that's in various stages of erosion or deposition. Then you get down into Daly City, where one of the big issues there is landslides, coastal landslides. That's different than most of the rest of the littoral cell. And then into Pacifica with its pocket beaches at Rockaway, and then at Shelter Cove and other stretches that are sandier. So, as we said, and we want to emphasize, the information in the plan is really 3 steps. One is, what is it like now? What's the coast like now? What would it be like if nothing's done? What's the economic value of the coastline? And then what are some possible responses the communities could take in the future? And what is not in the plan is any sort of a prescriptive project list. When you read through the plan, you'll see some tables that say there's different alternatives, and for a given beach, alternative B, C, and F, or B, or might be appropriate for you to choose from. It's not meant to say that you must do one of those. It's really give you guidance, inform. And then there is a discussion in there of linkages with other programs, how to respond, how to interact with regulatory agencies. There will be some sort of a discussion on funding possibilities. These are not necessarily going to be funded by a given agency. The communities will have to fund it. Some could come from the Corps or the state, or that's not something that's going to be in the plan about where you can get the money. It's just ideas about what you can try to do. Next. And this is just a list of the table of contents. The executive summary is going to be pretty complete, and if you can't get through the rest of it, please at least look at that. We would love for you to go through the whole thing there, and these are just the chapters. I've touched on them already, but they're pretty, just even the titles are pretty explanatory. So we're going to look where we are now, where it's going to be, and what you could do. Economics. There's going to be a section on governance, because this is something that CSMW is going to turn over to the communities in essence. And so there needs to be some sort of a way for the communities to look at this in the future in an organized way. And Kearns and West is going to be talking about that later in this presentation. Next. And then there are 6 appendices that have the information that was used by the ESA in developing this plan. And that's certainly also going to be available to you. And it's pretty informative if you want to get into it. Oh, and I do remember what I was going to say before. These plans are based on existing information, whether it be the erosion rates or the hazard zones or the wave climate. It's all information that's already available. The consultant was not charged with doing more research. And so as time goes on, there'll be more information. These plans could be updated. But at some point we have to say, we'll go with what we have. Okay, so as it was touched on before, this really started in 2012. We had some public meetings both here and in San Francisco. We focused more, we realized, in this area, Daly City, Pacifica, because there's a lot more activity and involvement already in San Francisco. We're not leaving them out, but we wanted to spend more time down here to make sure that we got more input from you and we were able to better inform you. So that's what on in 2012. As I said, the consultant BSA did their work and we did our reviews. And then we had a hiatus because on the governance outreach side, we had to change directions. Initially, we had ABAG as the agency that was going to lead the governance, and they made other decisions, which we can talk about later. And so then we had to change their funding direction, and we brought Association of Bay Area Government. Come on, don't test it. All right. And so that's sort of one of the reasons why there was that gap. And as Eric said earlier, we're kickstarting this again to get it done by the end of the end of our funding sometime in this next fiscal year. There were comments, and some good, some critical, in 2012, and we responded to those in future drafts. We've touched on a couple of them here. Hazard zone maps, which were generated and shown, generated concern. People said, oh my God, you know, this area is threatened and I didn't realize it. Well, that's the point of this, is to inform you. Those maps are invaluable. You need to know what's critically threatened, what may not be, and so we want to make that entirely clear. The point I've already made about prescription plans, that's not the case. It's a guidance document. The Sharp Park Golf Course, Mr. Harris has mentioned. That came out as a specific issue of there seemingly was a prescription that would be affected, that it would be changed and threatened. That's not the point. Whatever is decided by the community. We're just saying, for example, you know, you have the levee that protects the golf course. You could make it stronger, you could remove it, you could do nothing. And you could protect it by adding beach, or you could build it higher. But we're just saying these are the things that will happen if you make no decisions, and these are the things you could do. But you, the community, have to decide what. So again, it's a guidance document. And then there's issues related to wastewater. Certainly up in San Francisco, Ocean Beach, South Pacific Boulevard, there's hundreds of millions of dollars of wastewater infrastructure threatened, and so there has to be a way to respond to that. And in Daly City, and I guess, as I gather, Pacifica, there are also coastal wastewater issues. Okay. These are really hard to look at, so they're slices from the maps you're going to see later. So I'm really not going to spend the time on them. They really show what I've been talking about, what the setting is now, what it will be in 2050, and just some suggestions on responses. So I encourage you to stay and look at those at the end of this presentation. And then we'll be here to answer questions. And then I'm done. I turn it over to Eric.
Turn it back to me, thank you. And so that last slide was a little bit of a teaser. These are the types of maps that will be in the plan that everyone will get to review. But obviously you can't read them in great detail here, but we will have them afterwards if you want to take a look at some of the types of information that will be available. So just a couple more comments here to wrap up the current plan. As John said before, one of the pieces of the plan that was missing, that kept it from being completed, was the governance section. So ABEC, the work group have brought in Crimson West and Julie and I to help develop this section. We're in the process of doing that now, and that chapter will be inserted in draft into the draft plan that will come out in January. And so we look forward to everyone's comment on that, and we're certainly begun engaging in discussions with local jurisdictions like the 3 cities and the 2 counties to start exploring what are appropriate structures by which way governance could take place and implementation could take place for this type of plan. Okay, next slide, please. So here are the next steps. So we are looking to share the draft plan for review on January 4th for a 30-day review period. It will be posted on both the ABAG website and on the CSMW website as well. And we invite everyone here to please participate in that review period. As I mentioned at the beginning, we'll be having a couple more public meetings partway through the review period, so people can come, they can ask questions, they can share their comments at those meetings. There'll probably be one back here in Pacifica, and the second one is likely to be in San Francisco at this point. Next, we also, to address the governance issue, we are hoping to bring together some officials from the 3 cities and the counties to have a discussion, brainstorming around the draft plan. Will have a number of potential recommendations in there, but to dig deeper into what really works. What would a governance structure be that would work for these jurisdictions that would enable effective implementation of some of the ideas in the plan? Because these are issues that cross jurisdictional boundaries, so we have to find a way by which the different jurisdictions can work together. And then finally, in the February timeframe, the Coastal Sediment Management Work Group, and I think John will be on point, will be helping to incorporate the public comments that we receive. Kearns and West will help in the compilation of those comments, and the idea then will be to share a final version of this regional plan, and it'll be added then to the suite of regional plans, and will inform the ongoing development of the master plan itself. So those are next steps. So maybe go back to that last slide, and why don't you go to the discussion slide. So we want to open it up for several things right now. We would like to, if you have any clarifying questions about what we just presented about the San Francisco literal cell plan, we'd love to engage those. If you have specific comments that you'd like to share at this point that could help inform the final revisions that will go into the draft plan, we would like to hear those as well. And in particular, if there are activities that are taking place in the cities that you feel are relevant to the development of that plan, please share those if they're, we've been informed, for instance, that in the city, county of San Mateo, that they are currently doing a sea level vulnerability assessment, which has a big overlap with what this plan is trying to do. So we want to make sure that these 2 planning processes are being coordinated in a good way. And with that in mind, do we have Tony? Yeah. Tony's here. So I don't know if this is presumptuous to maybe seed our first speaker, but we did talk to Hillary before and thought it would be great to start this discussion by asking you to share a little bit about what you're doing there, because it certainly has relevance for this plan, and I think other members of the public here today would be interested to hear. And after Hillary's done, we'll open it up for general comment. So please introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name is Hillary Pappenbeck. I'm with San Mateo County Office of Sustainability, and I started there in June. And the county has received funds from the State Coastal Conservancy to conduct sea level rise vulnerability assessment for both the coast and the bay side of the county. So we've hired Arcadis Consulting to conduct the study, and it's looking at what types of assets are at risk from different scenarios of sea level rise. And by assets, we mean built assets, natural assets, and community assets. And we're just at the phase where we have draft maps and a list of assets by city, and we're getting ready to share those. We have a technical working group meeting next week, and then are planning a first public workshop, which we originally had scheduled for December 12th, but we now are rescheduling for January, I think January 23rd. So we have information on our website about the vulnerability assessment, our methodology, what we've completed so far. Our website is seachangesmc.com, and we're definitely interested in the results of this study, where key erosion areas are, and what sea level rise scenarios are being incorporated into this plan, and looking at how the 2, our vulnerability assessment, and which is going to then inform adaptation planning steps throughout the county, how the 2 can coordinate.
Thank you, Hillary. Appreciate that. It's been great to have your coordination in this planning process. So are there any questions? Again, questions or comments, reflections, information to share that you think is relevant for this planning process? We really want to open it up. Yes. Please, again, if you could start by sharing your name and any affiliation if you have one.
Sure. My name is Eulalia Halloran. I'm a local resident. I live on High Ground. But anyway, I just wanted to know, with the information you have from your study already, what percentage of the San Francisco cell is already armed? And how does that compare to other similar developed cells? Does that make sense?
So what percentage of San Francisco little cell is already armed, and how does that compare with some of the other?
Yes, and in your study, are you looking at, for example, armed areas affecting non-armed areas?
Next, thank you.
Well, I don't have the percentage. It's definitely in the plan, so that as you run through it, you'll see just how much is. That is on these maps. The consultant in developing the hazard zone identified in pretty good detail the length and the type of hardened structures. So those show up, and they would be also considered in the, what we would call in the core, the no action alternative. That is, if you do nothing, that would be a structure that in the analysis would be considered in terms of long-term erosion or the lack of it. And as for the percentages, I don't have offhand. But look at the maps when they come up or put up at the end of this meeting, and you'll get a good idea. And as for the other part of the question, it doesn't go into detail on what happens when a structure ends and then you have a non-structured stretch of coast. That's not the kind of coastal engineering analysis that was really focused on in the plan. But there's some discussion.
I have my, thank you. One additional resource that's available to you if you're interested in seeing where the armoring exists is the CSMW web mapper. We have a data layer in there that shows the where the armoring actually exists, both in San Francisco and statewide. So you can go to our website, move over to the right side, click on the web mapper, and it'll take you in there, and you can start looking at that data.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question.
Yes.
And please, your name and affiliation.
Stan Zeven, Pacifica. At these at-risk areas that we're talking about, you offer certain solutions, and it's up to the local government and the people to choose which solutions to use. For instance, if you have 3 or 4 different solutions for a particular at-risk area, you go into the results of adopting each one of those separately so that people have a detailed choice of what's going to happen in the future, or is it just listed, these are the 4 things you can do?
It's not in great detail, but it is discussed based on a certain kind of setting, because of just the way you would respond, what would happen. A good example is beach nourishment. That's a proven, well, I won't say terribly long-term unless you keep doing it, but it's a way to delay coastal erosion because you set up a wider beach which will absorb energy and which will protect the back beach and coastal zone. And that is discussed, and different beach widths and how the beach will respond over time based on what kind of beach width you choose. So there is that kind of information. But I would also say that when a community is thinking about implementing some sort of response, when they say, okay, we've got to do something, we look at the plan, we see these things, you're going to have to go out and get a consultant or somebody to work with to develop your detailed plans. And at that point, you'll get more information, and you'll get more feedback, and you'll get the latest. You know, this may be 10 years down the road before you actually decide, okay, things are so critical, we have to move forward. And so there'll be more information at that time.
Okay, thank you for that question. Question in the back here?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I'm Julie Mansell, Pacifica resident. Over time, it seems like, you know, just looking at old pictures of Pacifica, I know there's a lot being taken at the north end. There was some kind of study where a plane flew along the coast of California and took photographs in the 50s. And so you see, what you see there is, you know, people where there are no longer houses, which they fell into down to the beach near Pacific Manor, I guess, in '92. I think it was during those storms that started then. But they had yards of like 50 feet. Those old pictures. You see they had entire backyards and then plus the house. And yet at the south end of Pacifica, seems like things have not changed as much as they do at the north end. So is that something that you're able to identify and kind of discuss? I mean, it seems like kind of there are two different processes going on in that case, and may or may not be related to, for example, global warming. I don't know if we were considering global warming maybe was taking place in the 50s, but in any event, I'm sorry, I kind of introduced several different topics.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll actually hit the last one first, the global. Sea level rise, climate change is considered and discussed in the report. But as you say, back in the 50s, that probably wasn't contributing to the situation. But different stretches of coast respond differently because of different types of coastal setting, different nearshore bathymetry, different wave climate, and so things are going to respond differently, and you're also going to notice things that affect many homes more than a stretch of coast where there's no homes. So that's going to be more in your mind. But these things are considered, and within the report, and I probably didn't, I didn't mention this in any detail, the consultant has pointed out several areas of high concern and focused on them. And that you'll see as you work on the report or go through the plan. And so you, like Manor is one of those areas of high concern that you want to look at.
Okay, thank you. Brenda, I don't know if it would be appropriate to wave over to you. You described a little bit earlier some of the work that you're doing for BCDC on the Bayside plan. And, could you perhaps give a little update of how that planning process is moving forward and how the two plans are related?
Surprise. Okay, so for San Francisco Bay, I don't know, I wasn't planning on saying anything, so I didn't really have anything prepared. So for San Francisco Bay, we're also working on a regional sediment management plan. It's going to be very different than an outer coast plan because we're obviously in a closed bay. We have one way in and out. And we have a number of different activities that aren't happening along your stretch of coast. We have 5 ports, we have 7 refineries, we have lots and lots of dredging that goes on, we have sand mining activities that's permitted within the bay. We have huge marsh restorations going on, some of the largest in the country, and they all need quite a bit of sediment just because of the subsided nature of the bay edge, as well as we have had a few one beach nourishment project that has happened a few times since the 80s, but we haven't had a lot of beach nourishment. But people are now, with sea level rise, thinking about beach nourishment and putting coarser grain sediment along the edges of the marshes to try to keep them from eroding as sea level rises, as well as how do you get enough sediment onto the marshes to allow them to keep up with sea level rise. So for the California Sediment Working Group, and I'm not going to get into too much detail, we are focused on the central San Francisco Bay portion, primarily. If you think about central San Francisco Bay as kind of the lower part of Marin County, so probably about Puerto Madera, southward to about Oakland, is more or less what we call central San Francisco Bay. And that area is the target for our work through CSMW because it is the sandier part of the beach, and that tends to be more of the focus of the work of CSMW. And so we're hoping to complete the first draft of that plan here towards the end of the year. We will probably have it out for public review early spring. We'll probably go through some review process within CSMW and some other agencies before we really get into public review. And then over time, we have a larger regional sediment management plan that will extend out to the North Bay and to Sisseton Bay and then down to South San Francisco Bay. Because we look at our system as a complete system. And so we've got sand and sediment, fine-grained sediment coming in from the delta, the local tributaries. Our biggest wetland restoration project is in the Deep South Bay. It takes much of the sediment from the main stem of the bay. So we have a number of different things that we need to do. So we're kind of going stepwise through the process because it's San Francisco Bay is about as big as the state of California when you stretch it out. So we have a lot of work to do. So that's where we're at. We obviously would welcome anybody's thoughts as we get close to the edge of the coast, but I guess the interaction between the two is obviously the sediment moving out the Golden Gate Bridge, both the fine grain and the coarse grain sediment, and what it does into the San Francisco littoral cell. So we will be coordinating, haven't done a lot in the last 3 years because of the hiatus that's happened with the Outer Coast Plan, with how we look at the two together. We have also had interest from folks in the Delta, since the sediment's coming from the Delta into the Bay. Why don't we talk about the system altogether? Because we've got 40% of the state of California sediment coming through that system. And so it's a massive coordination project when you think about it that way.
So thank you, and my sincerest apologies for the surprise. Okay, but thank you. I think it's very helpful for people to understand that there are numerous plans and that they all be linked. So other questions or comments or thoughts, anything you might have that might help inform the finalization of the job plan? And again, if you could share your name and
My name is Rand Robison, and I was wondering about managed retreat. Does this study talk about it, or?
Yes, when you read through it, you'll see there are several possibilities that we consider as valuable or relevant. There's soft structures, that is like beach nourishment. There is do nothing. That's actually an alternative. There's hard structures. There are going to be places where the best solution might be to have a hard structure, either a new one or improve an old one. And there's also what's called managed retreat, where you will plan over time to let the coastline move landward. But it's different than just doing nothing, because you're actually thinking about it and you're taking steps beforehand, such as moving infrastructure, prepare for it. But again, this is just, it's discussed, it's laid out there, but you, the community, have to decide.
Does that help? That is, managed retreat is one of several alternatives.
It's not like it's there, in there, gotta go read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, yeah, so it'll be one of the alternatives examined among others as an option for how to address particular.
That's good.
Okay, other questions or comments?
question, and then I want to make another comment on this. The sea level rise maps that you showed, what was the source for that information?
I'm actually going to have someone else answer that. Do you want to answer this one, Bob?
Oh, I'm sorry, this is the question.
What's the source of the map? This is Bob Battaglio, who is the lead on the consultant.
I wasn't planning on saying anything tonight, but I did work on the project. So we took a combination of the Army Corps' guidance and the state guidance to develop several sea level rise scenarios or curves, and then we modeled the shore response to the sea level rise, along with an extrapolation of the historic erosion rates from the U.S. Geological Survey study and studies. And then we added all those things up together, and then for some of the scenarios, for each scenario or alternative, we modified the response according to whether or not it was armored or nourished or do nothing or briefly. We got different results for each. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Yeah, and then there's also a complete economic analysis and ecological analysis, and we mapped all the infrastructure that we were aware of, and I think there's a lot of good information in there for people to consider.
Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate that.
The other comment I wanted to mention, like, part of the vulnerability assessment, we convened a community task force to help inform our public outreach efforts. We have a couple members here tonight who are here, so I thought I would just highlight that we started that process.
Would you like to introduce them?
Sure. We have Margaret and Dan here. Any other community task force members? John Keener. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No other questions or comments? Are we nearing the end of our run here tonight? Yeah.
Tom, can I emphasize one of the things that Bob mentioned, and it's on the title of his slide. Whenever we're talking about sea level, it is scenarios. Nobody has a good probabilistic, characterization of really what we're expecting here. So all we can really do is a game of scenarios, and right. So it's just clarifying that, emphasizing that point.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so unless I hear any more, maybe you can put up a final slide which does show contact information. So you have Cliff, John, and Chris's information, email, and then also if you want to reach Ben, Julie, or Crimson West, our emails up there as well. Again, we're anticipating having the draft plan come out on January 4th, and we'll if you receive the announcement for this meeting, you're on the email list, and if you weren't not on that list, please sign in so you'll get on that list and you'll receive an announcement for that. You'll be able to download the plan off the websites. And again, we really look forward to your review over the January timeframe. So I guess before we close, I would turn to Chris or John or Cliff. Any final words from your CSMW perspectives before we adjourn? When we adjourn, we're actually, folks are welcome to continue the cookies, and we will put up those the maps if folks are interested to see them, and invited to come up here. We will have CSMW members available to answer questions. But final thoughts?
No real final thoughts, but other than just an invitation, my email address is up there, and I would welcome hearing from anybody here tonight, anybody else you might direct to this effort. I'm especially interested in hearing anything you might have regarding the possible implementation of this and the relevance to your community.
Thanks, Chris. Jonathan?
Thank you very much.
And please stay for and look at the map.
Okay, well, thank you. Otherwise, we are adjourned for this evening. Have a wonderful evening, and hope to see you again in January.
I haven't really made this, but I talked to other people.
It'd be helpful to know. It's going to be posted on YouTube. Well, we're not going to do anything. I just was told by someone that we just want to have a link. Usually it takes like a couple weeks to get it up there. I mean, there's no like two camera or anything. I don't know how fast. I'm just curious if someone. There's your answer. So we're gonna do another meeting.